Increasing numbers of children across the world are being separated from their families as a result of the death of parents, conflict and displacement, abandonment, trafficking, discrimination, endemic poverty and/or inappropriate child protection responses. The additional impact of the HIV/AIDS epidemic has elevated already high numbers of orphans and other groups of vulnerable children. By the year 2010, an estimated 106 million children will have lost one or both parents, with 25 million of this group orphaned as a consequence of HIV/AIDS. While the first priority aims to retain children within their families, wherever possible, increasing numbers of families are caring for their relatives or neighbors' children without sufficient support, and increasing numbers of children are living without an adult or primary carer. For these children, whose wider family cannot offer them a home or support, a range of other interim or long-term care options must be found. In response to these, government, non-government organizations, and private care providers have established a range of services, such as community-based options, for example, foster care by relatives and others, drop-in centers, or institutional care. These care options have frequently been developed without any legislative framework, policy guidance, or national standards. The absence of monitoring mechanisms for the protection of children without parents often leaves these children subject to neglect, abuse, or exploited. Save the Children's own work on care and protection is based on the principles and standards of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, UNCRC. However, neither the UNCRC or any other existing internationally agreed texts sets out comprehensive or detailed guidelines to inform and clarify good practice in care setting, which establish responsibilities and accountability. Save the Children UK and her partners in East and Central Africa Regional Office have developed a set of quality childcare provisions which could be applied in resource-poor or emergency contexts to raise the standards.
I'm Neil McMillan, the consultant for Save the Children, who wrote the first draft of the childcare standards for East and Central Africa. Since then they've come a long way and a number of people have been involved in developing the standards. When I arrived in Africa, I was surprised and saddened to see the standard of care for many children across childcare programmes in the region. However, everything was not all bad, and there were a number of people who were working considerably hard in very difficult circumstances to provide a good quality of care for children.
The standards have been developed in relation to 5 different areas, namely professional practice, personal care for children, staffing issues, resources and administration. Some examples in relation to the professional practice and administration include clear referral and admission processes for all the children entering any form of non-family care and ensuring regular reviews of the child's placement. In relation to administration, all information on a child should remain confidential, and all managers or owners of childcare services should be accountable for the quality of care provided. Some examples of the standards in personal care include nutritious diet, privacy, dignity and respect, education, attachment and bonding.
These issues may seem very simple, but for lots of people, they feel that without resources, they can't provide quality of care. You cannot care for children for nothing, but you can actually, within limited resources, provide a better quality of care. The example I always use is that many poor families provide quality care for the children. They may not have the best in material means, but they actually provide the bonding and attachment, security and respect that children can build their resiliency upon to face adverse circumstances.
Well, we first started by sharing the standards with a variety of agencies in East and Central Africa and really asked for their participation and time of who would be interested in taking the standards, applying them to their own projects, and sharing their experiences with this regional body of people. So for the most part, they are Save the Children projects throughout the region. But we also have other agencies like Help Age International, Uganda Reach the Aged Association, and also the Nairobi Children's Home, which is a government institution for young children from age 0 to 10 years. So these agencies are working in very different contexts, from stable environments like in Kenya to very conflict-affected areas of DRC.
All children are entitled to the rights within the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. These standards lay out basic principles based on the UNCRC. You don't adopt them wholesale. Introducing standards of care planning in a large institution in the UK would be somewhat different from introducing them into Africa. But the basic principles are the same. Children need to know what is happening to them in the future. They need to know who's going to be there for them. They need to know who's going to give them advice, who they can go to, and what's going to happen to them. Often when I went out to speak to staff, they would say, how do we make children's rights a reality when we're providing care for them in resource-poor environments? And it was clearly apparent that many of the staff did not have a background or training in childcare or child development. So we wanted initially to provide a tool which staff could use to basically improve their practice and move further towards fulfilling children's rights in situations where they were living without a primary care. That may be their families, it may be a guardian.
Actually, I first of all thought the quality childcare standard cannot be implemented in situations like South Sudan.
I was overwhelmed because I didn't think that the people who wrote them understood the environment within which they would be operating.
When I first read the quality childcare standards, what came to my mind is it really applicable in my setting? The setting I work in is of a poverty kind of situation. Are these children able to achieve all these? Are their carers able to achieve these quality care standards?
Wakati nilisoma ya kwanza niliona kama ni ngumu sana. Sababu tulikuwa tunaona kama tunajua kila kitu, lakini saa ile tulianza kusoma hii training tukaona tuko nyuma kabisa.
Oh, my first thoughts were what a mouthful. I mean, it was quite a lot to be done.
En fait, la première fois quand on m'a parlé des indicateurs qualitatifs des prises en charge, c'était d'abord très vague, un document très vaste. Et la question était de savoir comment appliquer cela. Est-ce qu'il fallait tout mettre en œuvre?
I thought these are the outsider ideas. But I just again go through and through, it become like a very useful document.
When I first read the quality childcare standards, I thought these were standards for Western models of childcare.
À la première lecture du document, c'était clair que c'était une évidence, tout à fait pertinent par rapport au travail social que nous faisons dans les centres, et à la fois aussi une grande révolution par rapport à ce qui existait dans les centres à l'Est et tout ce travail d'implantation de standards et de normes.
Well, as more families become affected by HIV/AIDS, the community takes on a greater responsibility to support and care for vulnerable households and children. Initial responses tend to be supporting children to go to school through school fees or increasing access to health care. And there was an obvious need to help communities and local NGOs and other international agencies to have a broader response to childcare that would allow them to look at issues of identity, the right to privacy, involving children in their care plans. And so as more communities have to respond to the growing number of children that need assistance, there's going to be a greater need for the quality childcare standards and not just meeting the basic survival.
Quality child care standards are about safeguarding the rights of children, and everyone working with children should be thinking about them.
Nitawaeleza juu ya standards kwa sababu nimeona ziko maana na nimesoma, sasa nitaweza kuwaeleza. Mahali wanafanya hivi ninawaambia hapo hapana. Nastahili mfanye hivi ndio kukue hivi na hivi.
Other countries and other people, I felt that if they are going to implement or establish a child-related program, I recommend they use child care standards.
Ce que je peux dire à tous ceux qui prennent en charge les enfants, c'est que, au moins là, nous avons un document qui peut nous permettre d'améliorer la prise en charge des enfants. Nous avons un document qui peut nous permettre d'évaluer la prise en charge des enfants dans les différentes institutions. Donc, à tous ceux qui prennent en charge les enfants, je leur demande de tenir en compte de ces documents, de tenir compte de ces normes dans la prise en charge des enfants pour mieux les protéger, pour faire la promotion de leurs droits.
It could be useful for any country or for any community to have it as a guideline.
The standard is simple and can be used by non-experts, and it can be used as a guiding tool in childcare institutions. What I think now is that the standards can be applied for all childcare models and in all settings and institutions.
You can actually begin to improve quality of care within an organisation in a community setting. But in order to have support to enable you to do that, you need to have a policy and legislative framework which will give guidance, which will give external independent assessment, which will guide new initiatives which are trying to respond to the increasing number of children without primary carers.
After implementing the standards, right now I think the quality care standards are very good. They are very achievable within our setting, and they have made the lives of children much better in a very short time.
The standards for children in East and Central Africa have received international attention, and it's my hope that they continue to receive support and are implemented and acted upon.
What I've found most rewarding in implementing these standards is the inputs of the children, child participation towards the standards.
I have adopted a kind of system where I am focusing more on the children. So now we are focusing on, even if we are doing a program implementation, needs assessment, whatever we do, we want to see what does the child have to say, what is the experience of the child, what does the child want, and we try to integrate, and how does the child relate to the older person.
Sana mimi nimesaidika sana kwa sababu nilikuwa sijui mambo nyingi na nimeijulia hapa. Kwa hivyo ningeendelea kama hiyo mpango ya standard tuendelee bado kufundishwa.
What I found most rewarding while implementing the standards is the time when the board, the management and my donors accepted that we should prioritize quality care of children in while developing our programs and in implementing them. I really felt I'd achieved what I desired to. Now we have programs that specifically care for the children's education, the children's welfare, diets, and their general welfare.
One of the partners that we started working with was from Uganda, Uganda Reach the Age Association. Their primary focus was to help elderly caregivers support their families, which tended to be their grandchildren. And in Uganda, a lot of the grandparents were caring for grandchildren because their primary caregiver died of HIV and AIDS. So Uganda Reach the Age Association were giving things like heifers or support for income generating, and they started actually looking at more childcare issues within that support. So helping elderly caregivers increase their communication and relationships to the young people. They started looking more about care planning, so that's involving young children and understanding their circumstances, the types of support that the community was giving, helping them look at what they call nominees, so a guardian that could come and help the elderly caregiver and also be sort of a temporary or permanent foster parent if the grandparent dies. So this program that primarily was focusing on just the elderly caregiver and issues of shelter and income generating now has refocused and focuses a lot on the child and child participation and child care issues within the households.
Donc, ça fait que lorsqu'on m'a parlé des normes, en les mettant en pratique, en les mettant en œuvre, ça m'a permis d'améliorer la qualité des prises en charge des partenaires qui prennent en charge les enfants.
Among the things I found rewarding is seeing the children happy and relaxed. With more staff coming in, both volunteers and more government staff coming in, the children are more relaxed because the workers are also relaxed. I mean, they are not overworked, tired, so they are able to talk with the children, they are able to know their fears, to know about their health and all that.
Avec l'implantation, le début de ce travail sur les standards de qualité, j'ai observé de façon assez extraordinaire un rapprochement entre les deux parties et une confiance, un respect qui s'était établi et de la part des adultes vis-à-vis des enfants et des enfants vis-à-vis des adultes.
I did experience a special moment when I was presenting the standards to the Uganda People's Defense Force. And at the action point, it was resolved that a training be conducted for the Uganda People's Defense Force on the quality childcare standards so that it is adopted as a working tool.
Another one is when I felt a form of fulfillment and expertise received when implementing these standards.
And one morning after I told them, okay, now the paint is dry, the showers are ready, you can bathe. The next morning when I went into the girls' dormitory, the bigger girls were jumping up and saying, today we were able to bathe, in the bathrooms without waiting for the younger children. And that was most rewarding because it made me feel like the children craved for that, but they were not able to say it.
Et ça, ce qui m'a beaucoup plus touché, c'est que les partenaires ont adopté cette grille d'évaluation de la prise en charge. Donc, ils ont adopté et accepté, ils ont dit, voici ce qui nous manquait dans notre travail. Donc ça m'a beaucoup plus touché. C'est un moment inoubliable dans la mise en œuvre des normes.
Où j'ai envie de croire clairement le résultat de ce que nous avions travaillé avant avec l'équipe pour se préparer le mieux possible. Et se préparer le mieux possible, c'était aussi implanter un certain nombre de standards minimums pour prendre en charge des gamins qui viendraient de l'extérieur. Et ça a marché.
But we also have changes in policy and practice among treatment of staff or recognition of care workers and the work that they do. So we see that within agencies or an institution, policy in terms of training, support and supervision of staff have increased, and staff feel much more supported and valued for the very difficult job they're doing in trying to care for children in non-family settings. We also have seen changes in equity and participation. An example of that is work that's been done in DRC with Theatre for Development, which is really a tool to empower children, allow children to share their voices and concerns through drama as a tool to engage adults and other children in discussions around key issues.
The most challenge is that people doesn't have a background about the care indicators. Locally, they have the way of protecting children, but there is no legislation or the institution in the country.
Le plus grand problème, c'était comment faire accepter ces normes aux partenaires. Donc, comment est-ce que les partenaires peuvent faire de ces normes leurs normes et non les normes que Save the Children leur donne ou les impose, quoi.
Beaucoup de résistance pour changer les choses, pour améliorer les choses dans certains endroits, avec comme excuse la culture.
Well, the most challenging things that I have actually witnessed is that the voice of the children are not respected.
One of the challenges, there have been many, in the quality childcare standards was attitude change. So there was some resistance at the beginning, you know, like the children we've taken care of the children like this for the last 14 years, so what's the big deal? But again, it was easy to convince them with patience and perseverance. The staff have been able to see what it's all about.
The initial attitude of the staff has been very challenging in that they said nothing is new about the standards.
The main challenge is people's understanding of what quality childcare means. People see it's almost a Western idea of many material goods. And in fact, very few additional resources are required to implement quality childcare. It's more about reallocation of resources, about deploying staff more effectively. So rather than have a team of 30 staff, only 3 of whom are childcare workers, you can redeploy staff so that your administration body is merely there to support workers who are supporting families in the field, who are supporting elderly carers, who are supporting foster carer or supported accommodation. So another approach is, rather than spend money on the building and the material goods required for institutional care, i.e. for security guards, for water tanks, etc., support children in their communities, have mentors, have peer households, use a continuum of care which will allow people to remain in the community, allow them to remain in their own societies, and redistribute the resources that would have gone to maintaining a building to actually supporting children in their own environment.
The advisors at Save the Children and the implementation group have worked extremely hard in the implementation of the standards on the ground with programmes. This has not been easy at times, but people have been innovative in the way that they have used resources to show that standards can be implemented without using masses of money.
Surprisingly, the main challenge to raising the standards of childcare noted by the implementation group was not financial resources. Rather, the main challenge revolved around understanding the standards, the roles and responsibilities at different levels to achieving these standards and attitude change of caregivers. These were dealt with by working with local authorities, stakeholders and partners, discussing the standards through participatory methods, discussing how they can be applied to the local context, carrying out assessments of the current childcare conditions, and identifying ways to improve the care of children.
Yeah, that was Chol, and they thought they were happy. Just seeing
These
if
discussions,
anyone else has
assessments
comments from
and
the
training
group on it.
led to the ownership of the standards by the community and staff members and positive changes in the lives of children.
La difficulté, et puis pour pouvoir réajuster où est-ce qu'on peut améliorer, où se situent les failles. Donc c'est beaucoup de suivi, à mon avis, de formation, de sessions de travail avec ces équipes, basées sur leur expérience qui est énorme, hein, qui est quotidienne, qui est la leur, et de pouvoir essayer de réajuster, de retravailler. Donc ça se fait vraiment dans la continuité, hein, dans le temps.
The most important thing to me is the organizational commitment.
Government policies on all those issues and on all child care programs.
One of the things that need to be done is to have some kind of awareness on the standards in terms of their value, in terms of their use, and then also there has to be some advocacy strategy which should be put in place.
A form of commitment by childcare organizations to implement these standards.
Et je pense que pour que nous puissions arriver effectivement à mettre en place comme il se doit ces normes, il faut qu'on puisse créer ce que moi j'appelle un comité des conseillers, un comité ad hoc de suivi qui fera qu'il y ait des gens qui peuvent conseiller ceux qui pratiquent ou ceux qui sont en train de mettre en œuvre ces normes.
And certainly by involving practitioners who are focusing on HIV/AIDS affected families and children, we've brought in a much wider dimension into the implementation process.
The implementation group in East and Central Africa has shown it is possible to raise standards for the care of children without an adult or primary carer. Despite weak legislation, limited capacity and resources, and the impact of conflict, separation, limited capacity, and HIV/AIDS. All communities and agencies working with children have a duty to fulfill the rights of these children and raise standards of care. Improvements in the lives of the children can be achieved. For further guidance and lessons learned from the implementation process, please refer to the Raising Standards Implementation Guide on the Save the Children's website, www.savethechildren.org.uk.